Hello, y'all. Tony here, back at it for the second part of 333 analysis or review or thoughts, whatever you want to call it. Sorry it took me a few days to kind of just recoup. I wanted to come back for the second portion of the review refreshed, and I actually listened to the entirety of 333 on a walk I did today. Um, And so, just because I felt like I was maybe in the last video I was just having trouble connecting with certain parts, but I wanted to get this video out where I feel more connected to the lyrics and the meaning behind 333. But let's cut the BS. Let's get right into it. We ended with Noblest Strive in part 1 of 333, and now we're doing part 2 of 333, and we're at It Girl. I spend the night, okay, far away on the other side. Now, this is interesting right off the bat because Blade, as mentioned, Other Side before. In fact, in Cold Visions, there's a song with Sick Boy Rari called Other Side, right? And so when he says I spend the night, that's like reminiscent of him saying I eat the night or I go into the night, I go into the darkness, okay? So he's saying I spend the night, okay. Like, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to delve deep into this darkness, which Blade has been through, as we know. Um, he's been through some tough stuff, right? Far away on the other side, okay. So, when Blade talks about the other side, what does he mean? They say the grass is always greener on the other side. But I think when Blade says other side, he means whatever belief about life that he has, the other side would be someone who's holding the opposite belief. And it's just well, how can you hold two beliefs that are contradictory? Well, that's what Blade is explaining. That's what he's doing, okay? Um, in this world, you gotta work to be the it girl. Um, Blade has brought up in his lyrics, especially with his older stuff, his I don't want to say aversion, not aversion, no, it's his struggle to understand love, and specifically love with another girl. So when he says you got to work to be the it girl, he's perhaps saying we have to feel like we have to fulfill gender roles and women should be blah 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 blah. Maybe he's saying that, but maybe he's also just saying you have to work to be the it girl. Like, this is the girl, the one girl I want to spend, the night with. Okay? Are you down to let it go? We can do it. Let go of yourself. Let go of your ego. That's the only way Blade is gonna, that's the only reason why Blade would be interested in you, is if you just let it go. Right? Let go of yourself, your your intentions, all of that. You have to start off on a clean slate if you want to be Blade's it girl. Okay? 8 hours in the dark, I'm in the rain world. Well, maybe it wasn't maybe it wasn't a bad idea going straight into 333 after my analysis of Rain World. And just for people who aren't aware, Rain World is Blade's only album that we know of that was never officially released. People have pieced together what they think is Rain World. They've put certain songs together and said, okay, this is Rain World, but it's never been officially released, right? So 8 hours in the dark, I'm in the Rain World. So this is interesting right off the bat, because normally when we hear Blade talk about numbers, he's talking about three. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. 9 upside down, that's a 6. Flipped around, it's back to a 9. But now, and then we also hear him talk a lot about 7, like 7 heavens, like we were discussing in Noblest Strive. But here he says 8 hours in the dark, I'm in the rain world. And you're just like, this album came out um, in 2020, you know? And Rain World was like, people were asking for that to be released like 4 years back, but he's still talking about Rain World as if it's something that he's gonna drop soon. And you're just like, okay, that's a mystery in itself. Is he waiting for the right moment? Who knows? But 8 hours in the dark, I'm in the rain world. For me, the significance of that line for me is it's right before 9. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so 8 hours in the dark, and then he's in the rain world. But maybe the last hour, maybe the last day, that's when he'll come out, and fully be himself. Now, this may sound like a little bit of a stretch. I think most of my opinions on Blade and Drain Gang and Sad Boys and Gravity Boys, all of that, I think my opinions are not necessarily the norm, but I think it's interesting to think about it. Think about Blade not in a box, but think about how he connects to our overarching story or the world story, because that's all artists are. Artists are receiving input from the world, the environment, all that, and then they're taking it and they're translating it either into a work of art, into a song, into a skit, yada yada yada. When the silence is so loud, it's like music. This is actually interesting. I personally, I cannot fall asleep unless I have a video on in the background, because my thoughts just start to go crazy, and I start to think about, like, oh, I have to pay this bill, or I have to do X on Monday, or I have to, or I'm thinking about, like, philosophical debates that I've watched, or I'm thinking about why am I here. So when the silence is so loud, it's like music. You have to think back to, other artists, Simon and Garfunkel, The Sound of Silence. Silence, the absence of sound, can be terrifying. I would consider it terrifying. There's actually a video um, I watched on YouTube once, and it was like people that it was like an experiment. You go into a room that's completely black, and it has all this padding on the walls that make it like negative decibel, like there's no sound. And people actually reported, you can fact check me on this, I could be wrong, but people reported like experiencing auditory and visual hallucinations when there was absolutely no sound or nothing. It's like our brain has to fill up that gap. But Blade's saying the silence is so loud, it's like music, and again, this is where he puts two contradictory ideas together, but it makes sense when you're looking at it from both sides. You're looking at it from one side and the other side, right? Blade coming up the shell with a new skin. Blade talks about being freed from his skin, ascending from like just the flesh, but he's not saying he's getting rid of his skin entirely. He's wearing a new skin, so he has a new shield, a new, spirituality, ideology, whatever you want to call it, to hold on to, right? In this world, you gotta work to be the it girl, still down for whatever. At the end of the day, he may have these, standards, blah, 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 but he's gonna be living in the moment, and he's still down for whatever. He just wishes that things could be this way. That's why he says, make a wish world, in my opinion. When you talk about a plan, we can do it. He likes it when other people make the plans, And it's like, who's the main plan he's talking about? Drake. No, I'm just kidding, not Drake. God's plan. My brain just connected those dots there. When you talk about a plan, we can do it. Perhaps it's God's plan. Maybe it's her plan. Maybe it's like what she wants to do. Maybe she wants to go out to the store and stuff. And he's just like, oh, I'll tag along. Oh, my MasterCard's declined. Oh, no, That's a reference to Blade Mulhor. Kind of getting off topic. And kind of going a little bit long for the first song. I was, in my head, I was hoping I could fly through these. So it's not an hour long like the video before, but anyways. Oh well. I love this song. I love I love all of Blade's music equally. I can't even come up with a ranking if I wanted to, but I do love this song. Oh well. Remember we talked about he had that plan, where he wants to follow the plan, he wants to come out with new skin. Oh well. It may or may not happen. Now why is he doubtful that it might not happen? It's because he sees both sides, right? He sees the side of faith where it's like, oh yes, I believe truly that this is going to happen. And then he sees the side that's like, no, this is all fake, He has a song called Plastic Boy. He has, he talks about fake drain, people who wear merchandise that's not actually really drinking. I would wear some drain merch, but it's all in storage right now. Anyways, I'm in the middle of moving. Drain Crusade on a mission. So, if you think about Crusade just from a historical context, they were actually pretty messed up people, forcing people to convert, by threatening their lives. That's what Crusaders did. I do not claim to be an expert on history, this is just stuff I've heard, in my education and stuff like that. But if you think about a crusade is like, we're championing truth and we're going to force it down your throat, whether you like it or not. If you don't accept it, we'll kill you, type of thing. Drain Crusade on a mission, Blade is not afraid to make you bleed. He says in his one famous song, I will make you bleed. He's not afraid. He's going to get these thoughts into your head, whether you like them or not. If I'm good, will I one day be lifted up? It's like, wasn't before he was talking about how he saw 7 heavens and like he knows for sure, but now he's like on the other side. There he was like fully in tune, now he's on the other side. Like, this may all just be imaginary, this life that I have or whatever. DVD My Life is a Cartoon. If you're talking about connecting it to reality surf. So he says, damn, almost thought I was different. I almost thought that because I can see things from both sides, I was special. But then in his journey of life, he finds other people who also see both sides and are trying to meet at the apex, And that's kind of where Blade is. When you think about both sides, and then you have the apex, that's the crest of the mountain. Which is, I got the album cover tatted right here. I hope that some of you are understanding these connections I'm making. It makes sense to me in my head, like, when I think about it, but then when I try to explain it, I can sometimes get lost in the terminology. But, oh well. Oh well, play the cards that I'm given. Oh well, play the cards that I'm given. And what does this mean? Well, when you're playing poker, you're given a set of cards that you have to play, and it's randomized. Some people might have better cards than you, but your job is to make the most out of those cards. Maybe if you have a bad hand, like a 7-2, you can bluff, and then that's almost like, it really gets into philosophical thinking here. Like a lot of philosophers, in the philosophy classes I've taken, I can't name any actual names, but there was always this idea that it's like we did not choose our family, we did not choose our environment that we were brought up in, we didn't choose what religion we were taught, or lack of religion, we didn't choose our political leanings, we were kind of born, we were kind of dropped in a random spot, we kind of like spawned in, like if you're thinking about it like a video game, and then we have to make the most or the best out of our situation. And so that's what this entire song's about. oh well, play the cards that I'm given. You know, draw a hangman, you can't hangman. You know, it's interesting that he uses hangman because when you play the game hangman, every time you get a letter wrong, another part of the hangman is being drawn. So the hangman doesn't fully appear until you've completely messed up and like you've misguessed all the letters, you know. So hopefully that won't happen if you're viewing that as a connection to real life. Hopefully you get some right answers too, and then the man never has to be hanged, right? At the top it's lonely, you know. It's lonely at the top, you know. When you understand the world in this way, and not everyone does, a lot of people are still in black and white thinking, you know, like I am definitely this or I am definitely that. I am definitely a supporter of X. I am definitely not a supporter of Y. But what happens if you're like Blade and you're in the middle? Not a lot of people are on that crest. Not a lot of people appreciate that both sides have truth in them. They just want to say, no, it's got to be this side, or no, it's got to be that side. The Blade's saying, let's chill up here at the crest, but it's lonely. There's not a lot of people there. Okay. 3 towers, but it's in the sand. You know, this is, for me, this is kind of like a low-key biblical reference, because I remember a Bible story where it was like, don't build your house on the sand, because you know that's not a good support. You have to build it on a rock, you know. um and he's saying there's 3 towers. Like he's seeing the importance of three. Maybe he's seeing the Trinity. Maybe he's seeing, like, you know, his gang, like Blade, Echo 2K, Tie Boy, but they're in the sand. They're sinking, but they're a tower. They're trying to stand up tall, but they keep sinking in the sand because their base, their grounding is shaky, right? Trash Star had to make my way. I don't know if I probably have mentioned the symbolism behind Trash Star. We'll get more into it when we look at the Trash Island album, you know. But basically, Blade is saying trash is like your baggage, your life story that you bring with you, your mistakes, your successes, everything. You know, that's all trash. You know, but he says he's a trash star because he's jumping out of the trash. He's rising above the trash, rising above his own problems, right? And becoming something beautiful in the process. But Trash Island can't get away. You know, what comes up must come down. You know, he has that one song where he goes, "Man, the shield goes up and it's never coming down," but it does. You know, and then how do you deal with that? You know, you can't. You're lonely. Like, you don't have an option. You can't just pick black or white. You know. Oh well, play the cards that I'm given. New hopes, new dreams. There can only be one. It's me. So here's Blade is saying, I think, rather foolishly if he means it. I don't actually think he means it, you know. But there can be only one. It's me. You know, he's almost saying, like, I am the creator of this whole spirituality ideology. There's no higher power involved at all. And that's like, that's kind of a problem you can run into. I've felt this way before too. It's like when you're trying to meet at the center, you realize that your thinking is, or you come to the conclusion on your own that you're thinking about this in the most objective way possible. But that's impossible. It's always going to be subjective. But when Blade said, there can only be one, it's me, he's kind of saying, like, I figured all this out, right? So that's what he says, oh well, you know. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, you know. You still gotta live life or decide what to do with your life. You know, thinking about all these connections, stuff like that, isn't going to necessarily enhance or ruin your life. So, oh well. And now we're moving on to Valerie. It's hard not to when I'm around you. How could I? How could I even say thank you? How could I even describe it? There's nothing like it. So I've heard people say that um, Valerie, and this is like on the Sad Boys subreddit or something. They might say like, "Oh yeah, Valerie is symbolism for Valium, or like a benzo or something like that." And so he's kind of talking about his addiction to it. It's hard not to when I'm around you. But I think also it could be a double meaning of Saint Valerie. And if I just do a quick Google search on Saint Valerie, um, she was apparently a soldier. I kind of just want to see what she's a patron saint of, since I'm Catholic. Well, apparently she was a martyr, so maybe Blade is tying in the symbolism of being a martyr for the cause, like because he's doing all these drugs to go on this spiritual journey to find the crest, and then he's going to bring people from both sides to the crest so that we can all reach some common ground instead of fighting all the time. But since he's doing a bunch of drugs to do it, like Valium, like other stuff that he's mentioned in his songs, he's almost a martyr in that sense. So you can kind of look at it in two ways. Valerie could also be the girl that he's he's like needing right now, You stayed down when I lost my confidence. You're too good to me. You're too good for me. Lay down with me, Valerie. Now, it could be, you know, it could be because I was actually talking to my buddy about this, and he was saying how Red Light, the album, kind of mirrors or it insinuates like the red light district, where, you can get hose, for lack of a better word. Um, and so maybe Blade is talking about how this is a hard temptation for him, lust in general, right? And he says, "Steady, my hand is shaking." It's almost like he hasn't had Valerie yet, or he hasn't had his fix of whatever. It could be the drug, it could be the girl, it could be the sex, like it could be um, it could be anything, right? But he's saying, no temptations, like he's recognizing that he enjoys being tempted. And this is kind of like a really interesting concept. Um, enjoying the being tempted to do X or to participate in Y, right? Lay down with me, Valerie. He basically gives in to his temptation. However you wanna, you know, whatever Valerie is to you, he's giving in to Valerie, right? And then he says, life is life and things will happen, things we couldn't imagine. So Blade talks about a dream world, he talks about a life that's better than this one, but he can only imagine it, or he can only reach it when he's doing drugs, or he can only reach it when, he has his one girl that's there for him, right? Kiss, kiss, kiss the fantasy. It's like, even, I don't even have much to say about that except he uses kiss 3 times. Fantasy is 3 syllables, right? So these numbers, things come in threes. A lot of things come in threes, and that's what I think Blade is trying to show with this album is like, we need to pay attention to our life story. Okay? Blade is the hero of his story, and by virtue of us listening to him and accepting what he's saying, he's giving us the courage to look at our own life in the same way that he looks at his. Now, that doesn't mean we have to copy his actions. He actually says a bunch of times, don't be like me, You don't want to be like me. But at the end of the day, Blade chose to be that way, which is which is a good single if you haven't heard it. Um. Okay, we're at the finish line. No, we're not. 4 more songs. I might try to just speed this up a little bit. I don't know, we'll see. The veil is thin like my skin. So, when you're talking about a veil, if you think about it in a religious context, I know, like in Catholicism, they used to wear veils over their face when you went to church. The women would, you know. But Blade, when he's talking about a veil, he's talking about his mask. Like, he's hiding his emotions. He's hiding his face, right? A lot of times he says, or in the song Other Side, he says, I'm in hell in my mind, even though I'm smiling, you know? And then he says, in some songs, he says he has an emoji face. So the veil is thin like my skin. It almost means like his filter that he uses for different social situations, right? Because we all use filters, like whether we're talking to our parents and we avoid cussing, whether we're talking to a teacher and we avoid using slang, whether we're talking to a respected, you know, leader in the community where we avoid, you know, being at all personal. We're just acting like, okay, oh, I respect you, you know. He's saying that veil for him is thin. He's put the chainsaw to his throat, like he said, never since, and he's letting all the words come out, you know. The lock is weak, I'm going in. The key, this is I like to think about the gates of heaven, you know, and there could be a lock on it, you know. Like, not everyone can get to heaven, according to some religions. But the lock is weak. You can easily break it and get into the kingdom of heaven. But how do you do that? Well, you have to go on a spiritual journey like Blade has been. The key is within. I'm sick. Find it, right? He is the key to get into the gates of heaven. But what does he have to do? He has to go through the darkness, right? And that's what, you know, this is all about. Uh-oh, where did my pain go? You know, his whole life he's been searching. And there's so much pain in the search. But then you find the answer and you find that things are not black and white. You're like, uh-oh, this is unsettling. But my pain is gone. You know? So there's several ways you could look at that. That's the best way I can explain it right now. In my dreams, I see an island. Get away, get away. So he doesn't say he sees a trash island. That's what he's on right now. But maybe he sees an island without trash, without all his baggage, wrongdoings, you know, drama, all that. He sees another island in his dreams, right? He's not fully bought in to the faith aspect of it yet. He's just saying this life is a dream. A lot of people who have faith, they say, I know definitively heaven is there, you know. It's an actual place, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying those people are wrong, but I'm not saying those people are right either. Okay, so at least Blade, when he talks about these ideas, a lot of times he says it's in a dream, you know. So you can have more creative liberties with it. The cost to keep this shit is everything. This stuff is everything. Apologize for using the cuss words. Sometimes they dip in. Gotta make a way, find a way, make a way. Make a way, make a way. Right? He's repeating everything multiple times. You know, just like he repeats the number 3 times. The album is not just called 3, it's 333, 3 threes, you know, which 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 9, and that's why you get D9, you know, which is one of Blade's, like, names that he gives for his collective, you know. It's either, like, D9, it's Gravity Boys, it's Shield Gang, right? And so that is Finder. Now let's move on to Extasia. You might be the prettiest three ahs I've ever seen, you know. Maybe he's still talking about Valerie, you know. I just want to feel like ecstasy, you know. So this is one of his songs where he starts off and he's just like, it's all about the feeling. It's not about the lyrics. And I see some people get turned off by Blade because they're just like, oh, he just repeats stuff multiple times and he uses whack auto tune, you know, and he copies stuff from, you know, but he's focusing on the feeling, you know. In Reality Surf, he says put a concept on the feeling, and that's what he's doing throughout the entirety of his discography, but especially in 333. Feels like ecstasy. Ecstasy is 3 syllables, right? And he repeats it several times in the song. Go with the connection flowing up so high that we can hold each other down, you know? So it's like when you start reaching this really high spiritual enlightenment, people start to think you're crazy, you know? And so Blade is saying that his girl, or whoever he's talking about, maybe it even is the higher power, can keep him, you know, from ascending that high, right? It's not easy. But he just wants to feel like ecstasy. He just wants pure happiness. He doesn't want any sadness. But the problem is that life is full of sadness, you know? And so you're not going to be able to avoid that, right? But he just wants to feel like great. He wants to feel great, okay? He wants to feel good. You know, it's like, it's a very, like, hedonistic type of idea. And I'm not saying that Blade is hedonistic. I think we all are in some senses. But what I'm saying is that Blade is more focused on the feeling, and sometimes he focuses on the message of his songs and you can pick apart his lyrics. Other times it's just the feeling and you can still pick it apart, but you just realize all you're doing is talking in circles about feeling good. Blade just wants to feel good. Blade doesn't want pain. I think that's a pretty universal thing to, you know, not want. Only One. Only One is one of the I think I'll say it's the most spiritual song on the album, right? And if at this point you're not on board with Blade being spiritual, or you just think he's psychotic, then it's like, this series probably isn't for you. I'm trying to look at the music from the same perspective that he's looking at the music, right? Feel so high, I touch the sky, I get through all the stages. He goes through the trials, right? He receives his sentence, and then finally he can enter the kingdom of heaven, right? If you're viewing it that way. Or you could view it as he's going through the trials of life to truly find himself. And he realizes that he's the only one. But is he? When he says only one, is he talking about himself? Is he talking about himself in the third person, or is he talking about God or a higher power, right? Your golden hair, the tower stands so tall, you know. But earlier he said there were 3 towers in the sand, and that insinuated that it was sinking. But maybe it's a constant battle between sinking in the sand and building your tower higher and higher to counteract that, right? And then that's where you get the equilibrium, you know, the crest, right? Blue skies, you know, blue has always been representative of good, you know, red has been representative of evil, right? So Blade is very aware of these, you know, and you can take the blue or the red pill in the Matrix, right? He's choosing the blue, at least in this song. A dream of life. Every night I count the days I have to wait for you. So this to me kind of like brings home the fact that he's not necessarily talking about himself, although you can view it in that way, you know, but I think he's talking about Or maybe he could be talking about finding himself and finding that he's the only one who can bring him out of out of his own darkness, and then he has to create the light himself. But when he says, "I count the days I have to wait for you," he's either talking about that, what I just said previously, or a girl, that he wants to be his only one, or God, and whatever God means to him, right? Had to try once again and keep on trying. He has to keep building his tower higher because the sand is sinking him. He doesn't have a rock, right? If he had a rock of faith, it might be a lot easier, But that's not the specific journey that Blade's on. It's sand, not a rock, right? Only one at the top of the cross, lonely. Yeah, so it's interesting because when you think about like the crucifixion, Jesus, and that's what he's referring to when he talks about the cross. Jesus was alone, like in his head and his mind, or I mean, he looked like he was alone, but the whole time there's people next to him, and then I think even someone helps him carry the cross at some point, and he's got the two thieves on his left and right. But in Blade's mind, he's the only one up at this crest. Okay, he's trying to bring everyone else up here, but he's the only one. So he's talking about how lonely it is to kind of have this knowledge and not be able to share it freely with people who understand it or are willing to receive or engage with it. I got eyes just for you in a different story. He's not following people's preconceptions of what religion, what the Bible means, blah blah blah. He's taking everything he's taught and he's coming to his own conclusion about it, weighing both sides equally. Create as I speak, I can speak your language. Now maybe he's talking about a girl, like he knows how to communicate with her in a way that she can reciprocate in like a relationship type way. Or he's talking about how he can now communicate with the higher power that he's referring to. And create as I speak, it's kind of like he's creating the story or creating the narrative. Him being the hero of his own story, right? And so God or whatever is allowing him to do that, right? What would you want to be if you could choose? Is what I would add. Let's see. Oh, we're on the last song, Swan Lake. And my my buddy actually sent me this song. He was going through some stuff, and I was re-listening to it, and then I heard it again on the walk, and I think it's like a little bit underrated. You don't hear about it that much, but he's talking about God, obviously, or a higher power, but he's also talking about a girl. We don't know who this girl is. I guess for this album, you could say it's Valerie, but maybe it's happened to Blade multiple times. Maybe it's happened once. Maybe it's happened twice. Who knows, right? But he says it's freezing on the Swan Lake, can't come home. I'm pretty sure Swan Lake is like a composed by Tchaikovsky. I think it was like a ballet performance or something. You can quote me on that, but he says it's freezing on the Swan Lake, can't come home. So if Blade is saying like if the lake is frozen, the swans can't move through it, they can't travel and therefore they can't go back to their home, It's kind of like a contradictory force, As soon as the sun comes out and the ice melts, then the swans will be able to come home, right? The garden with the sunflowers I go, my feet over the world's edge, bliss from heaven, arrows, rose petals, nightmares draining me. So, this song is definitely one of those songs where it's just more focused on the feeling rather than the lyrics, although I think there is stuff to pull out here. he talks about the garden with the sunflowers, you know, but then he contrasts that with a freezing Swan Lake, and you're assuming that like the sun's not out and stuff like that, right? It's winter in the world. I want your warmth. Winter's coming, you know, if you're a Game of Thrones fan. But winter's always coming, and then it gets here, right? And we're in the winter, and then it comes again, right? The end of July, it's the last day of July. So it's the month right before the last month where it's summer, and then it goes into fall and winter, right? It's winter in the world. I want your warmth. It's constantly cold, you know? And if you're Blade, you feel like Romeo, and you wear a Montclair coat when it's cold. Shout out to Ever Since. I'm swimming in the darkness, you know? And so Blade, he's constantly, you know, he's achieving like spiritual understanding, enlightenment, and then he goes into the depths and thinks everything's absurd, and then he thinks everything's amazing, and then it's absurd, you know. And it's similar with all aspects of Blade's life, but we can even see parallels in our own. We'd like to think that our life is going like, you know, straight up, you know, but a lot of times we dip down, and then we shoot up really high and have like really awesome moments, and then we go down in the middle, and then we go back up. It's complicated, right? But he's swimming in the darkness, okay? So he's constantly being on both sides. You know, instead of like a graph where he's going up and down like this, it's like he has a good side and a bad side, and they're kind of going together. You know, he's swimming through the darkness while he's in the garden with the sunflowers, right? Two opposite locations, opposite actions, right? And so the only one who can save him could be this guy right here. So I'll let you think about that. I guess that's the end of the video. If you made it this far, Jesus. I know I couldn't stay focused on a YouTube video for that long, no matter the content. It would have to be amazing. Maybe like a summoning salt video or something like that. Or yeah. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to do anything. Bye.